Okay, welcome everyone to the Flux Dev Meeting, February 9th, 2023. If you have agenda items, please put them on the agenda, which I'm pulling up right now.
I would like to discuss some changes to the OCI artifacts. I'm going to put in the agenda.
And we've had a bit of discussion off camera already, so there may be fewer things to discuss today than in the usual meeting, but we'll see once we get started. So, Stefan, would you like to go first?
Sure, mine is fast. Given that Docker Hub now accepts custom media types for OCI, and also many other registries have added support. The only one is GCR, but they have a new how is it called, Kingdom? The artifacts, Google
Artifact registry.
And that one supports OCI media types. So I think now we are in a situation where we can introduce our own OCI media type, like other projects are doing. The change is quite easy and doesn't impact in any way Flux on the server side. Source controller does not care about media types unless you tell it to. But having a Flux media type, I don't know, brings somehow visibility especially if you reuse the same repository for container images and configuration. Previously, we were using the Docker media type, so we're basically mimicking actual container image. And yeah, unless you would look inside the artifact, you couldn't tell if what thing is what. So I have created a pull request to demonstrate how this can be done with Flux push. And there is an example there in a pull request. We basically set the media type for the whole object to be OCI image manifest. The configuration is CNCF Flux config, and the media type, the layer media type, is CNCF Flux content. And this matches what Helm does, Kyverno, Open Policy Agent, and all the other projects that are shipping with custom media types. So in order to do that, I can create a pull request to change the OCI RFC and amend it with this media type. We could first approve and merge that, then ship this change. Any concerns or questions about this?
What type of backward compatibility guarantees or issues can we expect people to encounter with this?
From a Flux perspective.
Yeah, if they've already adopted the OCI artifacts and are already using OCI push, or Flux push rather, will things stop to work, or will they be able to?
No. You can So if you push with the old, all the new format, source controller will work with both because source controller does not care about media types.
Super. So we're just aligning our publishing with everybody else's standards. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't have a question, just a note. I was reading the OCI documentation a few days back, and I'm sure somewhere we mentioned that we don't have a custom OCI media type. So we should probably change that when this gets merged.
That we,
Pardon?
what did you say? Can you say it again?
I'm saying that the documentation somewhere mentions that Flux OCI artifacts don't have like a custom media type. So we should change that. Like we should say that when now you use Flux push, then this custom media type is used in the documentation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
For the docs.
First is the RFC. We change the RFC. We set there. Then we merge all of this, add it to Flux CLI, and before we do the release, after we do the release at the same day, we update the docs, of course. Yeah, this will open up some things. For example, I don't know, we could talk to the Helm team that maintains Artifact Hub and get our media type registered there, so people can index, can use Artifact Hub as a UI for Flux artifacts.
Registries like Harbor, they can show Flux logo maybe next to these artifacts.
Yes. Yes, something like that. Yeah. Basically, we register with them our own media type, and depending on what features they have, they can enable them. I think Harbor, yes, has those. It also shows icons for cosine and
Cosine.
Yeah, Artifact Hub has categories for each media type. So when you search, you can filter, you can say Helm or OPA or I don't know, Kyverno or so adding there our media type will allow people to filter and search for these types of artifacts. But given the fact that even if we are opinionated in a way of how we build an artifact and how we push it, we are not on the server side. Source controller does not care how you produce the artifact as long as it has a layer and that layer contains a tarball. It extracts the tarball, right? So no matter what we change in terms of metadata in our artifacts does not affect Flux on the server side, because Flux should work with any kind of artifact, not only the one produced by our own CLI. So we are great from a backwards compatibility perspective here.
It's just more like it's used for labeling. For tagging, you can filter all artifacts by Flux rated artifacts. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing, not sure, I think so I heard that the Helm team is trying to register OCI as
IANN.
URL type.
As a protocol type.
It's a protocol type, yeah. So what we are using, right? We say OCI, this thing is not directly docker.io, whatever. And when we did that, some people said, but YANA does not have OCI as a protocol, so why is this here and not do it like Docker does, right? Where it has nothing in front. But things are also moving forward there. So
But that's weird, right? I mean, it's still talking over HTTP, so why register it as an OCI thing? It's like an alias and
yes,
not a
it's
real
an alias,
protocol.
but
Yeah,
it,
but
it signals people it's a URL is not it's a proper URL, right? Because it's hard to differentiate between a local file path and a Docker image path, right?
where are they trying to get this registered?
With YANA, where all the other things are. There is a document in the Helm repo about this. I will head it on something. Yeah, if I find it, I'll
Yeah, I think I know where I need to look. Wait, give me a second. It's probably either in community or in. Yeah, I found it.
This is about their own media type. It's another discussion around the protocol.
Sure.
Or maybe it was in OCI, in the OCI repo. Yeah, so here in this one, they are registering the media types. We could also do this if help succeeds.
Trying to see where at what stage they're at now. For 9 is closed. They want to put it into the media types registry. They succeeded.
Well, okay, so we.
Or wait, yeah. Or wait, this is a provenance file. I'm not sure. Wait, what part? Which ones are?
They have 3 types or 4 types.
No, I think this is the V1 stuff. I closed the issue already. But... No, these are the ones mentioned in the issue, so they succeeded. Yeah, okay, that means that we could do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, we all only have the config one and the content one because we don't have provenience. The provenience and everything will come through cosign and OCI references. So not create our own provenience type or format. We rely on what the others are doing.
Yeah, I think one difference is that Helm has its own internal type. That's to say, an Helm OCI thing is always a chart, where our thing is a flat tar. So the need of registering our own type for us is less required, because you can specifically say that it's a tar. And in that way, a Helm thing is different.
The format is specified at the end, right? So our content media, our config type is JSON, and content media type is star plus gzip.
Yeah, but our resources are flat. We just expect them to be usable, whereas Helm needs another thing to work with the files and create a final end product. I think that's kind of a difference. But I need to read up on the reasoning of the Helm team.
Yeah, also in our case, right? In the artifact, it's something that some Flux controller has to understand and manage. If it's Kubernetes YAMLs, then it's customized controller. If it's Terraform, then it's Terraform controller, and so on, right? If it's Pulumi programs, it's Pulumi, and so it's Flux content is highly generic. It's something that some native Flux controller or I don't know, a compatible controller deals with it. So it's very loose. Any other objections? Can we move to the next one?
No, I think it's a good step forward. I was hoping this to be already introduced when we introduced the actual OCI feature from first, so for me it's a big plus.
Yeah, back then there wasn't support everywhere for media types, and we have users on Docker Hub. That was the reason.
I have a small question that Kingdon asked me about. In Helm controller, when the chart is not ready, we send a notification saying chart is not ready. Shouldn't that be a trace type event? Should not be an alert, right?
In the Slack message, it shows up as a looping green, green like everything's okay message, but it's every interval. And it says is not ready. So the current type is probably not correct.
No, it is in a way, but it isn't. It's expected behavior in a way. It's a difficult thing about us creating the chart for the user. So for a brief moment of time, when the reconciliation of a Helm release starts, it's expected to be not available. First, the issue was, hey, I'm subscribed to only errors, but this isn't really an error, so we changed it to info. We have to rethink in general about submitting it as an event, but I'm not sure yet how.
Yeah.
Anyway, with the work planned for Q2, eventually people will be able to refer to a Helm chart instead of it being created underwater, and I think that will solve more the issue better than as creating things underwater.
Well, from a user perspective, it's a looping notification and it's green. So I'm going to treat it as an error. What can we do to resolve the?
Well, ensuring that the chart is ready, because if it's looping, then for some reason it doesn't become ready.
Right. I'm saying though, if it's an error, it should show up as red. If I see a looping green notification,
Yeah, but the issue was that it in the beginning showed up as red, but then people were like, "Hey, I checked it in the cluster," and then when I went to look, it was restored already because it will at the beginning of a release where a new Helm chart is created, it will not be ready for some time that is expected. So you can't win. Either you have a user complaining about an error that disappears, or you have a good user complaining about something that shows up in a repeated loop in green, but is an actual error.
Customized control. I mean, I did it very differently to not spam people. And this should be fixed while if Helm controller will use the fetcher and handle not found errors for artifacts in a way that how customized controller does it.
I then still think it won't be solved because the Helm controller has a couple of different responsibilities opposed to the customized controller, where it also takes control over the resource, which makes the reconciliation loop a bit different. That's true for fetching errors, but this is not the fetching error. This is the controller checking if the chart object itself is ready.
Which it's not when you first create it, which is normal. And I understand that now. I see this is a bit more complicated than I thought.
For a customization, it's just like, hey, I'm going to look if there is an artifact there, and then it's like, okay, the artifact's there.
Okay, well, I guess it's okay because it's notifying me about a service that's actually down. It's not able to reach like the service periodically, so I guess I can live with this way rather than line anymore. I mean, if it's already been fixed from a previous iteration that people complained about more than this one, I don't think it's an issue then.
So customized controller, if the source is not ready, if the source is not found, if the source is found but doesn't have an artifact, if it has an artifact but the artifact fetch fails, it will not issue error events.
So
Because those errors should bubble up from source controller that can't create a chart, can't clone a Git repo and so on.
Yeah, but the problem is that for the Helm controller, because it creates the chart object itself, you can't subscribe to a specific chart object because you don't know the name it will be created with. So the problem in what the user knows about the Helm release object and the underlying chart object in comparison to how it sees a customization and the source it is attached to. This is basically introduced when we decided to create a chart object for the user to work around certain airbag limitations. Which is why I'm saying that if we allow the chart to be referenced by the user itself, it can work like the customized controller and the problem would be gone.
Okay.
And would solve another set of issues. For example, if you have multiple tenants, which all make use of the same chart but with different values. At the moment, you're running like at the same amount of charts as that you have releases, which is very inefficient.
well, thank you for bringing that up, Sunny.
This situation seems similar to what I've observed in image reflector. If you already have a repository and an image policy applied and you restart the controller, the image policy will fail initially because the repository is not ready. In the refactor code, I'm just logging, I think. Just waits for repository to be ready, and once it's ready, it updates. That's fine, right?
Yeah, I think that it's fine, but I think there again, the user is more aware of the individual objects that exist. Whereas with the Helm controller, if you only log it, then there is a blind spot for the user because it's not very aware of the chart being created. So you need to know about the Helm chart object. The other problem is already that people are like, oh, it's reporting that the Helm chart is not ready. Where do I go and look? So they want us to basically copy the error, the ready error of the chart into the message of the of the
Helm
release.
release.
Yeah, which is like very weird. Because you should go look at the object that's actually reporting, because the moment it's reflected, it may already be gone or changed, has changed.
Yeah, the Helm release does what I consider to be, the right thing. And it emits a red error at the beginning of this outage event. And it only does so once. And then I get a Helm chart not ready every time it reconciles, which I suppose is fine. If I'm watching the Helm chart for events, I should see that event. So
Yeah, you can subscribe with a star and create an alert for all Helm charts in a namespace. So you can actually see the errors. If you read the guide around Helm releases, there is there configure notifications. There is there an example also how you subscribe to Helm charts events.
okay, I'll also have to see what I can do about this Helm repository that goes down all the time. Do we have anything else on the agenda? Anything else anyone would like to bring up?
Image reflector API update or upgrade. Should I just describe? Okay, I'll just describe what's happening. Last month or December, when we did notification controller API upgrade, we saw some issues because of multiple reasons. We started adding some defaults in the API, which didn't existed before. Like the interval for reconciliation didn't used to exist before in notification controllers APIs. Now we added it. When we added, we also added defaulting values in the API itself, which is used by API server to automatically add it in the API object. But when you upgrade from a previous version of the object to a new one, instantly it won't be added to the object. Only when you save it or there's a write on the object, the API server will add the default values, because of which we had some failures, I guess, during upgrade. One fix was to add a getter in our API for those objects to say if there is no value in the defaulting value that we expect. In the API, in the function, Go function, we add the default value, and that way we resolve this issue. But there are some more confusions, I guess. Maybe Stefan, can you explain the reasons for removing the defaulting values from the API itself?
Yeah, so normally in Kubernetes, when you do a server-side dry run for older version, so in Git you have v1 beta 1. You have upgraded the cluster to the new version v1 beta 2, which has a new field with a default, and that's already persisted in etcd because, let's say, customized controller has applied it, or you did kubectl apply on it or whatever. But the issue is when you do a server-side dry run of a previous version, normally the conversion webhook should run before the query in etcd.
Get request.
Yeah. Now, so this happens with kind, works great. I've tested it last night on, I don't know, 20 versions or something. But looks like the EKS implementation, which I don't know what is doing there, it doesn't run the conversion. on dry run. So you get field not declared in schema, which is correct if you do if you look at the v1 beta 1 definition.
Any specific version of EKS? The latest?
No, this was reported. I need to find the exact version. The discussion was here. I'm using EKS. This is what they said. Not the exact version. But anyway, let's roll it as it is with defaults. If EKS users are complaining, we tell them to find a better provider. I don't know. That's the reason I removed it. Because not all Kubernetes SaaS are the same as Kubernetes upstream. I don't know. There is some mingling of how their API server works compared to upstream. And if I also talked to this person on private that night, and I told him to delete v1 beta 1 from the stored versions. And once you do that, EKS no longer uses v1 beta 1 for the dry run. Right. So it's something, I don't know, how they order the stored version, or I don't know what's happening there. They pick the wrong version. I'm guessing they match the one that comes through the apply or something like that.
Did you ask them how they did the upgrade? Did they mention it somewhere? Because in some documentations I was reading, it says the version of the storage would have the preference. In this case, maybe due to some reason, the old version had the preference.
No. They posted the status.
They
So if you
posted
look at the
stored
status-
version. That's the stored version, but in the individual spec of the two versions, there is a field called storage. If that's true, only one of them would be true,
Right.
and that would be used. They have not posted that here. So I'm wondering what they
No,
did.
but I mean, they clearly use Bootstrap because it when I removed the default, it got fixed. So they applied the original CRD. They didn't mess with it, right? Because that's why it got fixed. So I don't know. Let's hope this is some edge case bug in EKS that meanwhile got fixed, and none of the Flux users are left on that EKS version from December. And when we do the next Flux release, we'll not have people jumping on us because of that. If they do, there is a fix. You wipe Flux completely from the cluster. You do Flux uninstall, you delete everything, then you install it again. And Flux uninstall does not touch any workloads. There is no downtime. There is no problem in deleting it. The only, let's say, impact is around source control, because when you do a reinstall, it has to pull all the things again. But yeah, other than that, so it's in my tests, the issue with field not declared in schema for the dry run, I couldn't reproduce this on kind. So if we have getters and don't rely on the fact that in etcd we will have a default, that should avoid any issues we have with panics or anything. The second issue is a thing in EKS which I can reproduce it. So
So based on this, can we generalize it for all our API development that whenever you introduce something that has a default value, always add a getter,
oh yeah.
right?
Yeah, I also wrote that in December on Slack. I mean, we need to every time have a getter. There is no way around this. Unless we introduce webhooks and certs and all of that, which doesn't feel like we'll be doing before GA.
Regarding webhooks, I was thinking if we don't want to have webhook enabled automatically, one option would be if people need it, you can have this. If you want to do automatic upgrade, we offer this webhook, you can deploy it. Another option I was thinking based on some findings of yesterday, we can ship a migration container, which can just read and write the objects so that they automatically convert to new version. Does that make sense? When we upgrade, we run like a cron job, or not cron job, a job that will read each of the objects once and write it back so that the objects get updated. It's like a normal database migration. Do people do that?
I would not do such a thing. And DDoS the whole I mean, I don't know.
It's like
We don't
traditional
run
migration.
Flux with thousands of objects or tens of thousands like our users, and we basically have no idea what our decisions will do, how costly will be, and so on. I expect, for example, GKE to increase, start scaling out etcd, add more nodes, so you'll have like 3 times the cost of the control plane, and on some other cluster it will fail. I mean, we don't even do that for our own storage, right? Which it felt more normal to do. Like what Hide is doing now with the change of the checksums, digests, revision. We don't update in etcd, and that's so people have to deal with 2 formats at the same time and so on. And why we do that? Because we don't want to spam etcd. But on the other hand, we introduced this webhook that touches everything that doesn't have defaults and reapplies the whole thing, which I'm
just an option. Well, I don't think it's needed because when you start a controller, it will reconcile all the objects, right? So eventually the controller will automatically do the upgrade. Right.
no, customized controller not apply anything because it does a dry run and nothing changed, so it will not apply.
Okay, and that's like a no-op situation, but usually controllers just apply, right?
If customized controller do that at startup, it will be like really impactful, because then it will bump the generation of deployment, stateful sets, daemon sets. It will be really nice. So also Helm controller does the same, right? If you restart Helm controller, it will not just run a Helm upgrade for all the charts out there. It will be no operation. Oh, it's nothing to upgrade, and it will skip them. So no, things are not reapplied at Flux restart. That's, I think, a really good thing. But yeah, it's your idea is still, I'm still up for discussing that, but for Hide's change on source control. Maybe, updating all the artifact status and setting for everything the new digest revision format, maybe that makes more sense, because then people, if they do kubectl get on some objects, they will see main / the commit. On other objects, they will see main arond and all of that, right? So
Yeah, but
I'm
it's
guessing.
logical, right? Because it's a revision. So it's at the time that the artifact was created, a specific revision was assigned. That can be an arbitrary string. It's just a unique identifier. We changed the format of it, but if you would change the format while the actual contents of the artifact are the same, you're actually saying this is a new revision. That's why it doesn't change it. And for the checksums or the digest, it's better to just create a new digest when you see a new object than to kind of recalculate it, I would say.
Well, the majority of users will have the new digest and will have the new revision because the storage is gone, right? After the source controller restart.
Yeah. They will see new things, of course.
So
yeah.
only people that have PVCs configured will have these two formats for a very long time if there is no change upstream.
Yes, but I think the one of the upsides of moving to a digest, especially for the checksum, is that the consumer side can validate it even if the configuration of the server changes at a later moment, because it includes the algorithm that's being used. But I think this is a discussion to have at a later time when everyone can be tuned in, because I'm currently in my head already dealing with like 3 things and I can't deal with another very complex addition at the moment.
So image reflector controller refactor that's ready. I have done all my testing, but would like others to also test it. I did some upgrade testing. Everything seemed to be working fine.
Yeah, I've also been running it all day since we discussed on 3 clusters. Not only CRDs, and I did a test that I posted there, but then I did a bootstrap with a forked repo where I added the manifest from your branch. I was really confident everything is fine until I disabled the image policy cache in image automation controller, and now I'm like, what's going on? But given the fact that the whole reconciliation, all the logic and everything changed completely in your version,
it's not completely, it's refactor. It has some of the previous logic.
What's really strange
anything.
there is the fact that, so if you have an image repository with a 1 minute interval, and then you have all the image policies. Right?
Yeah, we talked about this before you joined and the recording started, but Sunny has a theory that they are running 2 controllers.
Oh.
And we have had people before who had like another team running Flux or another thing, and then 2 controllers fighting each other. But that's one of the things that, of course, could be. But then I still can't explain it though, because yeah, that would then mean that one of the controllers has an old view of the registry. So from my understanding of how the view is updated is that they look at the registry and then they say like, well, this is the latest tag, right?
No, image repository looks at the registry and saves all the tags in the database. Then it fires up the image policy reconciler. The image policy reconciler takes all the tags from the database and does an order of that. So another issue could be that the database has caching or something like that, and you do a query, it gives you a result. You do another query, it gives you the previous.
Yeah, I
record.
think we need to look into that direction because I think Sunny went through all the code and he can really literally can't explain it. So that says something. So it must be something like this. It's like it's the most logical explanation at this point.
Yeah, let's ask them how many, if there are more than one image reflector controller running in the whole cluster. I guess they can do kubectl get pods all namespaces grep image reflector.
Yeah, just select by the label. App
Yeah.
is
Or maybe they set replica too, right? And they have two pods, even if it's the same deployment, then they like fight.
but then it should have disabled leader election because otherwise it
I
would
mean,
be.
a lot of people are doing that and they expect to scale Flux horizontally. I've seen a bunch of people.
Yeah, they do disable leaders election and then they.
There was
Oh
an
my
issue
fucking
in Helm
god.
controller today that was open with. I asked, like that can be like scale horizontally and disable leader election. There was an issue that someone opened today. In
Yeah, you
Helm.
can try it if you want to see the world burn.
Yeah, there is an issue very recently for Helm controller about.
Yeah, I saw it this morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the best candidate to try it out on.
Oh,
So Sunny, should we merge that, right? You'll have, are there also docs in there?
docs are there. So, a few things I can mention. So the previous auto login flags still exist,
Yes, I
but
see.
when it'll just log an error saying it's been deprecated. I need somebody to review the message. Maybe you can improve the messaging. And maybe we need to somewhere warn people that if they're using auto login, they have to update their object to add the provider properly in the object itself.
Yeah, so we also need to prepare a pull request that updates all the docs.
Although
All the docs to remove
docs.
the flags and give
Oh,
examples.
right.
We have the API docs which will be published automatically, but we have the image automation guides, and those are in the website. So we should have like a draft or something like that that's reviewed and can be merged as soon as we do the release. So docs will not be out of sync. Other than that, yeah, I've run it. It works fine. I don't see flipping image policies at all. But I'm using not the Google registry. I'm using GitHub registry.
Are you using all sorts of sources on your clusters, Stefan?
Yeah, I have OCI, I have Git repos, I have.
Do you have buckets?
No.
That's the only thing I didn't try on my PR around artifacts, but it's derived from all the logic of the others, and I tested all the other ones and they worked. But I didn't get to setting up a testing. You need to set up a test Minio instance every time, and I don't have a cluster running 24/7. And setting that up on Kind is kind of a pain.
Yeah,
but I need
the
to.
Minio one is gone, right? You can't use the public Minio.
Well, it had downtime, a lot of downtime.
Yeah, I guess people abuse the hell out of it.
Yeah, they set up rate limiting, I think, and I think they weren't too happy with our CI pulling it all the time, but they changed that to a Docker image. No, okay,
Yeah,
then I will try it out.
I have an Oracle free VM, the ARM64 one running. Try to set up Minio there and give you keys for it.
I have a couple of Minio instances that are running on a super old version of Minio from Deus Workflow out of my house. I don't know if that helps, but they run 24/7.
You can also you can use the our Azure account, right? Create a bucket or whatever they call.
Yeah, I was hoping for something simpler. So every time I go into cloud environments and have to deal with like all sorts of different names than what I'm used to using, I get very frustrated.
No, I will set up a menu for us. It's like I have
Now I
that
need
menu.
to regarding my PR that's rating in the sourcing tool. I need to fix the last comment from Soleil, and
Mhm.
then it should be done. I tested it extensively yesterday. I tested it per persistent volumes, and I saw things rotating or either not rotating, and it all seems fine. I observed some weird behavior around the either log or event that's being pushed if an Helm repository is already in sync, but that's also present in main, so that shouldn't be taken care of in my my branch. But anyway, it always says that it saved something, even if it didn't.
And next you'll do notification control, right?
Yeah, and customized controller.
Okay.
Should I work on updating the API or the guides for Image Reflector?
Yeah, I will
Prepare.
do one more read of the whole pull request tomorrow morning when I'm fresh. Try to I don't know, capture typos and all of that stuff. Then I'll approve it. I'll keep an eye on my local tests. I did push images. Image policy adds it to the status. Don't know what. Oh, I haven't tested the OEDC stuff. I didn't run it in ECAS.
Maybe a month or 2 months ago, I updated while updating those tests. I think I did test them. I can test them again. We have all the test tooling.
Yeah. Also, I don't know what to do, how to promote the new features. I think we need to advertise latest tags in the guide. And also we now store the previous image and latest image in policy, right? So, and these were both things were highly requested by features by users in the past. So I don't know, maybe we should add some pointers or links from the guide to the API spec and mention, hey, after you create an image repository, you can actually see the latest 10 tags in the status and make sure you have the database has something, because that was the major issue. People were saying, okay, I see it has down 40 something tags, but
I think in a guide this would be best explained by starting with image tag A and then moving to image tag B and simply explaining that you can observe this, literally explaining that in a guide.
yeah, just some 2-3 phrases to advertise the new observability features, right? Because we made things more easily to debug in the end. That was the whole idea. And also for, I don't know, any UIs built on top of Flux, these are cool information to display there under these objects.
Do you know when we will be releasing, doing the next release?
I have
Next week
created.
itself? So
So there is an issue. Have you seen it? It's pinned on Flux 2.
I'm asking because after next week, I won't be here for 2 weeks. So you may be releasing this in my absence. And if something goes wrong, I don't know.
I think we should be able to release it at the beginning of next week.
Okay.
So the big to-dos are the refactoring that you are doing and the change of the revision. OCI, media types, and anything else, if they don't make it, and if these two are ready and if anything else is not ready, we'll just not wait for them and move with 040 and do other things in 41 and so on. There are a lot of changes as they are in 040 right now. One thing that affects basically everything is switching to Go 120 as build for the build, which should be at least 10% faster than 119. But that's I can do that when I update all the packages in our containers. I'll also bump the version in CI. I've did some tests on my local machine and it's faster. Like you can go build a source controller on 120 and it's indeed faster. That's great. Yeah, and we'll see if we can, I don't know, Sanskar, I know you'll be working on the being able to give a full Git ref for a Git repository. We'll see. There is no rush. If you can have it by then, okay. If not,
I want to talk about that. So I went through Hidde's RFC and like how we store like digests and revisions. So right now, if we have, let's say, a branch main, so we do main @ SHA-1 and the whole checksum. What would we do if the reference name is like ref/pull/91/head? So would we just put in the whole ref name in like for the pointer of it?
That's a fair question.
I would go with the commit if you'd ask me. I would just.
That's the commit SHA.
Yeah, is either a ref or if you specify a commit, to me is the same because the ref is just a shortcut or commit. But yeah, less visibility, right? In notifications.
It's a bit difficult. Actually, the ref is a named pointer, but with a type in it.
Exactly.
Because the full ref also defines a type.
Exactly.
I think the easiest way to start with is indeed to go with Stefan's thing, because then we don't have to think more about it. Then we just take the head, which is the commit, and then you can look at the spec to see what the actual ref is. And then based on the observed generation, you can see if they match, basically.
Okay. So basically,
we
just
can change it later on if people really want more than just the commit, but I think it will be fine to have the commit for now.
So will it be head @commit or just
No, my IRC removed the head. It's because the head wasn't really a thing. It was just a thing we invented. So if we now, basically, if you have a tag or if you have a branch, then it will be the branch because that's equal to an OCI tag, for example, which is a named pointer. If we don't have either of those, then we just list the commit, which is prefixed with SHA-1 because that's the current. Well, you can do SHA-2, but it's not very common. No Git server supported. But yeah, it's just a commit SHA in that case.
Yeah, thanks.
So Sanskar, can we resolve a reference to a commit without cloning the full repo?
Yeah.
We can, right?
Yeah, we're already doing that. Basically, all the logic is already there. I looked into it with.
I can actually have a PR up by tomorrow. Now that this has been resolved, I can have a PR up by tomorrow. It's pretty simple.
That was when we did that optimization where we do
Yeah.
the remote fetch, right? So we don't download the whole stuff if we already have the artifact, and we need a commit, right, to actually decide, oh, we need to clone or not.
Yeah,
So-
what we do right now is that we basically have human-made strategies to support, for example, Samfare ordering, etc.
yeah.
And then what we do is based on the selected strategy, we basically construct the full reference ourselves. And then we
Yeah.
go on and ask the server like, hey, what do you have for this reference? Which is like the way in which we prevent cloning. And now we get the full reference, so we don't even have to construct it ourselves anymore. And we just go to the server and say like, well, what do you have for this reference? And then we get the commit shell back, and then we opt out to just clone that specific one.
Yeah, the nice thing with adding the full reference as an option is that now people can point to weird references like merge request or pull some ID and so on, right? So
Someone from Weaveworks asked about this like a long time back, I remember. Because they
a lot
wanted
of people asked about it. Also on Slack, a
to-
lot of
So yeah.
yeah. We have different users who have created their own controllers, and they generate Git repositories, and that was one of the issue. Like, how can I, instead of giving it a commit, I want Flux to follow a pull request, and that was impossible. And I think Hide responded, it's impossible because we have hard coded something. I don't know, head/head, or it's something in Go Git that we set as the default, so it's impossible to switch to a pull request branch.
But yeah, I tested it. It works. I like it should work. I tested it with like GitLab and GitHub both. Like they're git /ref/pull and /ref/merge request, both of them work. So yeah.
Great. Okay. Anything else? We are over time. Okay. Have a nice evening, day. Bye bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye bye.